Dagda agus tá fáilte is me an Scéalaí Beag. Hello and you're welcome. I'm the little storyteller coming to you today with another Patreon Insider because we've arrived at the 1st of May and this is actually Bealtaine, which is the pagan festival for the changing, the solstice change toward the return of the light. It's the kind of opposite end of the old calendar, which was Samhain at one end and Bealtaine at the other. So what else is on the first? It's also Patreon Day. And on Patreon Day, I've got a new story released for the people who are following me at the close club level. Um, this one is called The Family We Choose, and it actually was inspired by some community engagement. As part of the Irish Pagan School that I co-founded with my partner Laura O'Brien, we've been doing live at 5 sessions through this time of physical distancing to try and fight the social distancing. We're not being socially distant; we're being socially engaged by turning up on a regular basis for live at 5 sessions to hang out with our community. And it was true there that someone asked a question which really triggered my exploration for this story. And the question really was, how would one choose to approach, or how would one approach the data toward a relationship in fosterage? Given, that there are a lot of difficult circumstances out there with people not being accepted by their parents or having absent father figures or bad relationships with like toxic masculine figures in their lives. It can be very, very difficult. And all of the work I do with Dagda, he really has that big dad energy. It's a lot of like, care, well-being, but that kind of gentle firmness of like, but you'll eat your vegetables, right? You know? um, so it really was an interesting perspective. I'm very fortunate in that I come from a very engaged and stable family circumstance myself. I've had a very, very present, very engaged father, and I know I'm the odd. I'm in a small percentage of people because even amongst a lot of my friend groups, um, there are a lot of people who had absentee fathers or fathers who, you know, were emotionally distant in some ways, and it's really opened my eyes, my work with the Dagda and the stories, delving into the ancient Irish lore and pulling up this information, looking at him through the perspective of a druid, looking at him through the perspective of a man, a masculine figure, but also as a father because he's known as on Olahar, which is the father of many. But as we dive further into the stories, it's not just because he has lots of children. He's not just prolifically kind of popping out babies with a partner everywhere, or in other cases, kind of soliciting or manipulating his way into sexual circumstances that we've seen in other pantheons. Um, and that's what I mean by big dad energy. Like, we have stories where one of his children, Angus, makes a promise he can't keep and he comes wailing to the Dagda about it and he's like, oh no, I'm in trouble, what am I going to do? And the Dagda's like, okay, well, leave it to me, I'll take care of it. And the Dagda fells an entire forest worth of trees in a single night, you know. So there's a lot of kind of stories, like even how the Dagda got his magic club. That is an effort, that is a labor that he takes on to restore life to one of his children who had been slain. And so it's not a case of Dagda choosing to chase power for power's sake. He's taking power to look after his child and doing whatever he can to deny death to his child. And so it's something I've really explored. And through the story and through the ancient Irish culture, there is this records of fosterage where, even Angus, when he was born, he couldn't be claimed by the Dagda. And so he was placed in fosterage with Midder, one of Dagda's other children. And this was very common. This was like a practice, and it wasn't like a hostage circumstance. It wasn't like, oh, well, you have to send your children to kind of keep your family in line. Like that did occur, but in the majority of cases, it was actually just like the children are community children. Like the community is the family, and you're in fosterage with that. Like even Lou, the god, was raised by Tailchu. Tailchu was a Firbolg princess, so that's even cross tribe circumstance. So Lou became the King of Ireland and led to the Danann in the war against the Fomorians. But his foster mammy, Tailchu, who the Lunasa Games were actually founded for, was a Firbolg princess. And so, fosterage was not some kind of trade-off or distancing of your children in some way, shape, or form. It was actually just, you know, looking after the wee ones and looking after the next generation. And so we know that Dagda is like, you know, a foster dad as well. Like we've records in the destruction of Doderic hostel, the story where, you know, this person kind of glances through the door in this otherworldly hostel into the room of the Kitcheners, and there's Dagda with two young men, known identified as Seg and Segday, which are the two sons of Roger Singlespit, and they're working with Dagda, and it's actually said that they're his fosterlings. You know, when we go through, we look at Monaghan McLear is actually listed as a fosterling of the Dagda, a foster child of the Dagda, and so this really kind of the question about how to enter a relationship with in fosterage with the data, like someone in my community seeking that kind of big dad energy or the sturdiness, the supportiveness, the connection, like really struck me. And I was able to kind of give some information and some insights from my own work and my own experiences with it. Um, but it wasn't kind of done. And so that's what kind of inspired the story. So it's a story based in Brillet, which is the home of Midger when he grows and becomes old. But this is actually set when he's a useful individual, and I don't want to go spoiling the story. I will say that there is certain bardic license taken in regards to this. There's no record of Midder's age or Monaghan's age. There's like for the purposes of the story, I've put them as approximately the same age. Although we do have some kind of crossover and confusion. Many of the old lore stories are in one translation or recension attributed to Midder, but then in the other versions they're attributed to Monaghan. So it's almost like they cross over with each other's kind of track and each other's kind of story. Are they the same individual? Some people have postulated, or is it a case that there are two separate individuals and just people get confused about which story is connected to which or which version of the story? And I think that is the joy and the challenge of an oral tradition and an ancient bardic kind of process. And so um, I'm working to, you know, be very honest and upfront where those kind of circumstances are. Like, you know, we do know that Monaghan was the fosterling of the Dagda. We know that Sig and Seg they were, but a lot of the structures around this is kind of an exploration of what healthy masculinity and healthy fatherhood could and should be, especially in difficult or challenging circumstances. So that is the insight. That is the Patreon Insider for you. The story is released and it is available, as I said, to the Close Club members. And once again, thank you very, very much for all of my patrons supporting the work that I do and being able to bring this to the community and kind of keep the connection flowing in this way. If you are engaged with the Irish Pagan School, you can kind of check in for our Live at Five gatherings because we're still carrying on with this physical distancing circumstances and a lot of people are feeling the isolation, but it doesn't have to be social distancing because you know there are communities out there to engage with where you can find them. So Gaurav Mahagas, thank you very much. August Slán. Goodbye.